So in this video, I'm going to show you how to carry your yarn up when you're working with two different colors. I just worked with the yellow, which is my main color, and I've got to start working with my complementary color, which is a variegated pinky blue yellow purple color. I wrapped my complementary color with my last stitch on the bottom row here. And I'll show you how to do that when I get to it in the next round. But now I'm going to start working with this because it has been wrapped down here. When I come to join it onto my first stitch, it's going to close it off. While I'm doing that though, I also want to wrap my main color onto my first stitch here. So I'll have a double action. I'll have my yarn from my last stitch that I just worked on my main color wrapped around my first stitch here, cinching that up and bringing this yarn that was wrapped around my last stitch to work the first stitch, closing that off. So I've got a double action of closing this gap, so there will be no gap. So now when I'm starting with my new color, I'm holding the color I just finished with my left hand. I'm going to come in with my needle and I'm going to put this yarn over the top of my right needle. I'm going to wrap my working yarn around that. Actually, I just noticed something. You want to make sure that your working yarn isn't in front. So let me start that again. My working yarn has to be behind. I'm sorry, it's a good thing it happened. We can all learn from this. There we go. My working yarn has to be underneath this new color, this old color I just finished working with, and the new color has to be underneath that. You see that? Okay, now I'm ready to start. So I go in, my old yarn that I just finished with is on my left hand and it's going over my needle. The new yarn I'm going to start working with wraps around the needle. I bring it through and that is wrapping the old yarn around my first stitch here. So I take it off and there we go. And now I just knit across my work until I get to here and then I'll show you what to do. Okay, so now I'm getting to the end of that row and I'm going to want to wrap this yarn that we wrapped in the first stitch. Now I want to wrap it with the last stitch of this row. So you see how that even, just that simple action of bringing it over kind of closes that gap. So it's a double protection. So when I get to it, I need to knit and then I'm supposed to do an SSK at the end. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to take this yarn and again I'm going to bring it over the right needle, work with my left needle, my working yarn, and bring it through and take it off. So when I came around, so the first time I wrapped my yarn that I just finished working with, I wrapped it on the first stitch of the row. And as I finished that row, I came and wrapped it with that last stitch. So now this round, I still work with my complementary color and I'm going to work all the way around. And when I come back, I'll show you what we do with this, whether we're changing colors or whether we're continuing on with a complementary color, how you can continue wrapping that or what you need to do with that. Okay, I'm coming to the end of my second row of my complementary color. And so let's say I needed to do two more rows or 3 rows or however many more rows with a complementary color, but I don't want to cut my main color because I know I'm going to use it later. So if that's the case, I'm going to continue carrying my main color up with the last stitch on this needle. So the way I would do that is I come up to it and I knit up to that last stitch, whatever the pattern needs to be. And I come here and I put that yarn, whoops, trying not to drop everything. I put the yarn of the main color, or that strand of yarn that I want to carry up. I put it again over my needle. I wrap my yarn around, I bring it through, and then it's there. It's going to continue coming up along that side of my work, which is what I want, so that when I do want to come and close it off, it's pulling it from the end towards the beginning, and it closes it off nice and seamlessly. But let's say I was ready to change the color of the working yarn I'm doing. I would then not do that, because it's already wrapped in the bottom. I already wrapped that on my last row. It's already on that last stitch. So I'm just going to knit this stitch normally. And then I'm ready to start working the next row in the other color. So what I would do is I would get myself ready, and now I want to wrap this one with my first stitch so that this pulls this closed, and this is pulling from the bottom to close it. So I bring my complementary color over my main color. My main color is underneath, and I'm going to come in here, and I know I need to knit two together. So I come in to knit two together. I put this yarn over my right needle, wrap my stitch around, and bring it back through, and that closes that. Okay, and then I just continue on with my work as I need to do. So it's just a question of wrapping your yarns around the stitches. So when you're finishing, you want to wrap it in the first, and before you start the next row, you want to make sure you wrap it on the bottom. So you're creating kind of like a crossover tension thing so that it doesn't open up. I hope that was clear. Thanks.